Hi everyone, I'm your host Dr. Haider Shah, and on behalf of Kalwas, I would like to welcome all of you to this webinar. Thank you very much for joining us. Today we have another very interesting topic, and I'm really honored to welcome and introduce our distinguished guest speaker who is going to talk about publishing in high impact journals, his personal experiences, insights on that. What are the things you need to consider as a researcher while intending to publishing in top tier journals? Why people get the desk rejections, and sometimes after first revision or few months the journal get reject the paper. So we will get the answers right in the session. So stay tuned because an amazing stuff are coming ahead in the session. So before we start, I would like to thank all of us for arranging such enlightenment sessions and for their support and providing such a platform where people can interact with the world-renowned speakers, teachers, authors, researchers, and experts to share their views, experiences, and tips, which will create impact and will enable you to learn new things and develop and grow in order to uh, contribute to the world at large. As our slogan is to come, learn, and share knowledge. So today, our guest is extremely professional, known for his excellence, commitment, and dedication to the field. And above everything, he is an amazing and a humble person to talk. So let me introduce him formally. He is an associate professor in the School of Hospitality and Technology Management, MUMA College of Business, University of South Florida. He received his PhD in marketing from the International Business School, University Technology Malaysia, and Masters in Management from Glendore University, United Kingdom. He has also authored more than 100 international referred journal articles and international conference papers. His recent research has been accepted and published in internationally referred top tier hospitality, tourism, and service related journals. He's the recipient of numerous research awards and is an active member of Academic Hospitality Association. Currently, he serves on the editorial board of numerous journals. He is currently the president of the Southeast Central South America Federation of CHRIE. He also serves as the assistant editor of for International Journal of Contemporary Hospitality Management, Journal of Hospitality and Tourism Technology, and coordinating editor for International Journal of Hospitality Management. He is the trained expert and sought after speaker around the globe. He also manages a wonderful YouTube channel called Research Beast, which I'm also a fan of it, to discuss issues related to research and researchers. Recently, he was included in the Stanford University's list of top 2% scientists of the world for the year 2019. He is the author, trainer, researcher, educator. What we like about him is his dedication to profession and commitment to serve the world for better. He's always ready to contribute and share his knowledge and guide the upcoming researchers. Last but not the least, he's the most humble person and always ready to cooperate. So please help me in welcoming our today's guest, Dr. FAIZAN Ali. On the behalf of Kalwas, I would like to thank you so much, Dr. FAIZAN Ali, for taking the time to talk to us today. And thank you very much for accepting our invitation. It's a great honor to have you with us.
Thank you very much, Dr. Haider. It's my pleasure. And you know, I always say this to people. Normally, I don't say no to any talks. That's all fine with me. But every time I'm invited by someone from Pakistan, I'm extremely happy to contribute because I believe that there's a lot of potential in developing countries in Pakistan, in Bangladesh, in India, but unfortunately, the way people in developed countries look at developing countries is not very good. I mean, of course, there's some issues, but I feel that these type of platforms, these type of talks, these are so important because this can really connect people from developing countries and developed countries producing some very good research. So thank you once again for your invitation, and I am very happy to be here. So, Dr.
Thank you so
Haider.
much. It's wonderful to see you because we have been watching your post and your YouTube channel, which is full of powerful content, and it's very useful to the researchers around the world. They are learning from it. Thank you very much for your contribution. And as a reminder to the audience that you can ask questions directly from the speaker, but of course at the end of the session. and if it is not have been covered in the session. So before we get started, let me just tell you about the format of this session, that Dr. Faizan Ali will be presenting about the 60 minutes and leave time in the end for you to ask the question. So let's get started. Over to you, Dr. Faizan Ali, please.
Sure, sure. Heather bhai, can you please share my slides from? Thank you very much. Okay,
Yeah, it
so
is.
I um, I was told by Dr. Heather to talk about how to publish in high impact factor journals. So here's the thing, the way we look at journals, it's also very subjective. It depends, right? Because in some fields, high impact means one thing, in another field, high impact means another thing. So just remember one thing, you need to think of journals in your own discipline and what are you doing, right? So your topics, your discipline, your subject area would determine what an high impact factor journal would mean for that area. In hospitality and tourism, we look at things a bit differently, right? In social sciences, people look at things differently. Now, imagine if somebody is publishing in archaeology, they would look at things differently. So, high impact factor journals are not always about impact factor. This is one thing that is very important to know, to remember, and to learn. When young scholars come up, the only thing we always listen is impact factor, impact factor, impact factor, and the higher the impact factor, the better the journal is considered, which is not a good way of looking at journals, right? So high impact factor journals would be journals that really create an impact in your field. Now, in many cases, I have seen articles that are published in a newspaper called The Conversation. Maybe some of you have heard of it. It's an online newspaper, highly cited, highly read around the world, called The Conversation, right? So this conversation is high impact factor, a high impact journal in many places because people read it. It creates an impact, right? So don't always get yourself stuck in impact factor bandwagon. It's not a good idea, especially for young researchers, because what I've seen is over the years that people get their research outdated, people get their research literature review outdated just because they want to publish it in a impact factor journal, and it keeps getting rejected. They keep sending it to other journals, they keep sending it to other journals, and it keeps getting rejected. So just for once, think about impact in terms of overall impact and not only impact factor journals. Okay, now here's another thing that is important before I start my presentation, and that is if you are going to cook something, right? Just imagine that you want to cook biryani, or you want to cook for my Pashtun friends pate tike or anything, right? You want to cook something. You can go to someone who is good at cooking that stuff. They can give you a whole recipe, all the steps and everything. And if you follow it, there's a 95% chance that you're going to cook it exactly how they cook, right? You can get the same taste. If you want to drive a car, most of us, when we were learning to drive a car, I think most of us did not learn driving a car from our fathers, because fathers are very difficult, very strict, right? Most of us have learned driving a car with our friends or friends' car or cousins or other things, right? But anyways, regardless, when you want to learn how to drive a car, you go to somebody, they tell you there's a bunch of procedures, you follow them and you drive a car, right? Anything in the world is like this. Publications are not like that. Publication is a very different ball game. If I tell you what I have done in the last 5 years, 6 years, 10 years to publish papers, I don't think if you do exactly those things, you're going to also publish papers. There's a lot of reasons behind it. One, the difference between our understanding of concepts. Second, the difference between our topics, the difference between the journals we are targeting. The journals keep changing, the journal scope keep changing, the editors change, reviewers change, right? Topics progress, methods progress. So remember that whatever I say may not work for you, right? That's why I always believe that these type of talks, when we say how to publish in a high impact factor journal or how to get published, these are good to learn the skill set, but not it cannot really give you the procedure or a shortcut on how you can publish it. There's no shortcut in here, right? So that's why every time I talk about stuff like this, under the topic, under the big topic, I always write my insights or a guided experience, because what I will tell you now is all I have learned in the last 5 years, 10 years. but this learning is based on practice, right? It's not like one day I wake up and I have 100 publications. It's not like that. So it's a lot of hard work, a lot of sleepless nights, rejections, a lot of rejections and stuff like this. But you keep learning through that, right? So this is all a guided experience. I hope that you learn from it. But believe me that whoever is listening to me right now, take it as an advice from a senior, somebody who has gone through it and giving you an advice. Now you can pick up this advice and see where you can apply this in your own research journey. You cannot apply 100% stuff that I'm going to talk about, and you cannot ignore 100% stuff that I'm going to talk about, because most of us go through these type of things. All right, so with that, let's proceed a little bit into my introduction, which obviously Dr. Heather already did. I'm currently an associate professor in the School of Hospitality and Tourism Management. I got my job here in 2016. So less than 5 years ago, I started my job. Before that, I worked as a postdoc scholar at Florida State. My PhD was from Malaysia. I studied in UK for my master's, and because I'm from Pakistan, so my BBA IT was from Pakistan Institute of Management Sciences in Peshawar, and this is a bit about me. So one thing that many people ask me is, how did you end up finding a job in the US with a PhD from Malaysia, right? Because this is a question that everybody asks, especially these. I mean, recently in the last 1 year, 2 years, some of my friends who are leaders in Pakistan in different leading business schools and management schools, deans and associate deans, they ask me that, even in Pakistan, sometimes we question PhDs from Malaysia. How did you go to US with a PhD from Malaysia? So this is why I said it earlier, that everybody's journey is very different. It's very different. So we cannot put a label on people saying that, okay, your PhD is from here, your PhD is from there. It doesn't work like this. Look, all the time, whenever a few people from Pakistan, a few researchers from Pakistan, we sit together, we question the system in Pakistan. We say, oh, the system is so bad, this. And there's a reality to it, right, Dr. Heather? But I'll tell you this, I know several people who have studied from Pakistan for their PhDs, and they've gone back to their countries working. In fact, I have a very good friend who came to Pakistan. In Pakistan, then he came to KP. And in KP, he came to University of Peshawar to get his PhD in Gandhara civilization from Malaysia. The guy is from Malaysia, came to Pakistan, came to University of Peshawar, got his PhD in Gandhara civilization, and went back to Malaysia to USM in Penang, and now he's working there as an assistant professor. So this is an example of looking at, everybody's journey is different, right? I am from Pakistan. I studied in Malaysia. I went to US. There's a lot of things that I've done to do that. So only my PhD does not define me, right? Getting a PhD from Malaysia doesn't define me. Same is the case with many people who go for PhD in China, and then other people say, oh, PhD in China doesn't mean anything. Why not? I mean, why won't it mean anything? China currently is leading as the global economy. Why won't it mean anything, right? Now, based on this, what I have summarized is that basically it's not the degree that matters, but what you do during that degree that matters. In fact, I'll give you one other example. I know one girl, she is from Myanmar, who was studying in Malaysia also, in environmental management, environment related stuff, and refugees. So I know this girl from 2013. Why? Because when she was studying for her PhD, she had some complications with her methodology. So somebody recommended her to me to guide her with methodology. At that time, I didn't know much, but I knew something. So I guided this girl, and I still remember that I met her in IKEA in Kuala Lumpur, because I was also a student at that time. So she came with her husband. I went with my family. We met. I guided her a little bit in IKEA, and then later this girl from Malaysia, she went to China for her postdoc. To if I'm not wrong, she went to Tsinghua University, and from there Then she went to US, to Harvard University for another postdoc. And right recently, I saw that she got a job as an assistant professor in Yale University, which is one of the top 10 universities in the whole world, getting a PhD from Malaysia, right? So again, remember, it doesn't matter where your PhD is from. What matters is what you do during that PhD. That is the most important thing. So I have seen people that get into the PhD, then they are enjoying their life, party, this, enjoying traveling, all this, At the end of the PhD, they have one or two publications in, really low level journals, and then they go and complain about the country from where they get the PhD from. And that doesn't work like this, right? So in Pashto, we have a saying that I'll translate it in English, that the more sugar you put in the tea, the sweeter it is, right? So that's exactly what the life lesson is. If you put your hard work during your PhD, you will end up somewhere very good. If you don't put up, then you start blaming, the country or the university or other things. Without saying, I mean, when I was in my PhD, I suffered a lot of issues, right? There's a lot of issues. Of course, Malaysia is not also 100% perfect, right? It's not perfect. There's obviously a lot of issues, but you got to go beyond those issues and then see what can you do about it. So I'll tell you how it happened to me, which is a good way to get into how to publish an impact factor journal. So when I started my PhD in my second semester, I went to attend a conference. Okay, when I went to attend a conference, this was an international conference in Thailand. During that conference, a few scholars, top scholars from developed countries, I still remember some people from New Zealand, a couple of people from UK, and a couple of people from US. I talked to them, and when they got to know I was studying in Malaysia for my PhD, they passed some comments, some, not very good comments, right, about, like, Malaysian PhD or whatever. It actually put me into a very negative state of mind, right? Because, I mean, of course, I spend money. I'm already living in Malaysia for my PhD, and I hear these comments. It's not good. So after that, I talked to my supervisor, Dr. Muslim. May God bless him. Wonderful, wonderful person. I love him so much because of his guidance where I am today. He told me that, Faizan, they are completely right. You want to do something, you got to publish. There's nothing else. You got to publish. That's the only way you can change your image or whatever. And I really listened to him. Fast forward 3 years later, I finished my PhD. At the time I finished my PhD, I had 19 or 20 publications, um, good journals, and all that was good. Now, how I started was I did not, so the first paper I wrote, I targeted IJCHM, International Journal of Contemporary Hospitality Management, which at that time was amongst the top journals in hospitality, got rejected. That paper got rejected. And I look at the comments, learn from it, but at the same time, I also learned that I was not skilled enough. I was not skilled enough. My writing was not good. My methodology was not good. I didn't know the concept. My contributions were not good. So I thought, okay, let me build up myself. And then I started from really, really basic stuff. So my first 2 or 3 publications were in really new journals, not paid journals, not predatory journals, but really new journals, maybe already published 2 or 3 issues, not too difficult. So got accepted there, got motivated. Then slowly, after the first 2, 3 publications, I moved to Scopus journals. Then my 10 to 15 publications were in Scopus. So during that time, I learned how to write, how to develop methodology, how to deal with the journal submissions, how to deal with the reviewers, how to answer reviewer comments, right? Plus, I also learned the concept, right? The concepts, because in Malaysia, you don't have course, right? So your PhD, whatever. Now, some universities, maybe Dr. Heather, you are from University of Malaya, it's a different story, right? You have courses. But
Yes.
other universities, there are no courses. There's 2 courses, research methods and Bahasa Malaysia and the culture, right? Which either way doesn't contribute to the understanding of the content. My PhD was in marketing, right? I don't have any courses in marketing. So all I knew was from my master's and undergraduate in marketing. So PhD level, there's no courses. So those first 15 publications or so in Scopus journals got me to understand the content because I have to read a lot, right? And then I started SSCI journals. So basically, I graduated from my PhD in April 2015. So April 2015, I was done with my PhD. My first SSCI publication came out in November 2015, 6 months after my PhD finished. This paper was already under review, right? It's already under review, but this paper is now my third most cited paper. This paper is one of the most cited papers for the journal it is published in, right? For the last how many years it's published. It's one of the most cited papers in the top five, and it's good. So then November 2015, and now it's 2021. So less than 6 years, I have close to 50 SSCI publications because that base was very strong. The first 15 publications in Scopus journals really developed the base to understand the whole thing, right? And then build up on that. Now, for some people, it's weird because for some people, when they looked at my CV in the start, the first 2 years, 3 years, when there was no SSCI publication, all the publications are Scopus, and many people laughed at me, like, what are you doing? I mean, look, there was always this competition of SSCI and impact factor and this and that, right? Yeah, it's okay. You listen to them, you ignore, you do your stuff because you have your own plan, right? So you continue with that plan and you proceed like that. So this was how I went with SSCI. Now this year, 2021, I have, I think, 12 publications, and all of them are SSCI. And not only SSCI, they are all top tier journals in my field. So again, building up that base for younger researchers is so important, right? So you can understand the whole thing. All right, so from here, then let's move on a little bit further. Yes, the interesting thing is this. IJCHM is the journal that rejected my first paper that I just mentioned, right? First ever paper I wrote in 2013 was rejected from IJCHM. Today, 2021, I'm associate editor for this journal. Okay, so it takes a lot of hard work to do these things, and this IJCHM is right now #2 journal in hospitality in terms of impact factor, in terms of impact it generates. So again, this is all that learning that comes from publishing and talking to people. One other tip here that is very important is rejections are there to make you better if you are good enough. If you understand it, they are there to make you better. Okay. In fact, a few days ago, I was watching one scene from an Indian movie where they were saying, they were trying to talk about population control, and they put a slogan on a wall in a village which said that "Bacche do hi achhe, na do bacche jaise kheer, baki bawasir." Okay, so for that, everybody is angry because in this village, everybody have more than 2 kids, right? More than 3 kids. So they are all saying, okay, so these 2 kids are here, the other kids are like Bawasi, what are you talking about? So then the main character in the movie is trying to explain to the village that it doesn't mean this. Actually, the word is there so that you can feel bad about it. And because that bad thing, you are not going to do it, right? So normally rejection is same way. Rejections, I know nobody in this world who feels good with rejection. Nobody feels good with rejection. It doesn't matter how optimistic, how positive a person is. When they get rejection, it feels bad. It really feels bad. Okay. What's important is what do you do after that rejection? So once you get the rejection, after that, what do you do? Now, unfortunately, I've seen many people, they get a rejection, they don't even read the comments. Okay. So it's like this, they get a rejection and then there's no time for comments. Let's just directly submit it to another journal, which is not a good idea. Okay. I just want to show you something. This is yesterday. I printed this whole 6 pages. This is a paper submitted to a top journal. It was sent to 4 reviewers. Two of them gave rejection, two of them gave major revision. The paper was rejected. But I downloaded this one so that I can read it line by line to understand what's the problem with the paper. Because the people who reject it, they don't know my name. They don't have the name of the person who submitted the paper. So they really look at the paper most of the time on the merit of the paper, right? What is the merit of the paper? And if they are saying that there's something seriously wrong with the paper, we at least should read the paper and see what's going on with it, right? So that you can learn from it. And believe me, these type of things can really teach you a lot of things. One example of this is I recently did a paper with PLS, and then the one of the reviewers asked me to conduct endogeneity test for PLS results. So you have done PLS, but you also need to do some endogeneity in PLS. At that time, the endogeneity paper from Hensler and Ringel, it just came out. It just came out, right? So not many people knew about it. So I look at it and then I tried searching about it and I couldn't find anything. There's no examples, there's nothing, because there's no endogeneity, but one of the reviewers pointed it out. So for that, then I did a lot of research and then I realized that one of my friends who is also in Malaysia, from Bangladesh, Muniruzzaman, he has done a paper where he has followed the whole procedure of endogeneity. So not only did I learn from him, not only did I fix my paper for endogeneity, but I also invited Munir on my channel to come and explain how to do those tests, which is also beneficial for other people, just by one comment from one of the reviewers. So this is one example of how, even people who so for me, I always say I'm an advanced learner. I'm still a learner. It doesn't matter how much I know, I'm still a learner because every day we learn new things, right? Many people who look at me, in fact, today also, Dr. Heather, when you shared that this talk is happening, somebody commented below that Dr. Faizan is an inspiration. I'm so grateful people think like this, right? Many people think like I know a lot of stuff, but I still learn every day because I cannot claim I know 100% of the stuff. I cannot. I've probably, if we even look at things, maybe 1%, maybe even less than that we know, right? So those reviewer comments, those comments coming from journals, don't let them go to waste. There's a lot you can learn from those type of things. Okay. Yeah. I think another thing that is very important is that, make sure that you live your life. Research doesn't mean that you should skip everything else. In fact, before this session started, I was talking to Dr. Heather that right after this session today, I'm going to spend time with my kids to do gardening because they learned this in their school, how a seed grows and everything. And then these days, I'm also teaching them about Allah and the creation and everything. So I want them to learn these types of things. What better way of doing this than to sit down with them for an hour or 2 hours and do some gardening, right? Maybe take some plants, seeds, flowers, and do that. Those type of things can really keep you sane. Okay, otherwise research can really make you insane and you don't want to do that, right? So you need to keep some sort of fun things in your life. Some people who might be watching now, and if you are on my Facebook, you would know that I travel a lot. Used to travel a lot before COVID-19. Now I do travel in around here, but I travel not to tourist places. I don't go to tourist places. I normally go to jungles near rivers, somewhere where it's quiet, but it's also natural, right? Refreshes you. Okay. And then also I like photography. So when I do photography, it helps me. So let's say I spend maybe 3 days, 4 days on a research paper, a lot of work, a lot of stuff. Then I take a day off because you're a human being, right? You need to refresh yourself. It's very important, right? And I do this. I mean, to me, what works, and again, this may not work for all of you. To me, what works is I cannot focus on one thing for more than maybe 40 minutes, 45 minutes when I'm working, right? So sometimes what happens is I'm working for 40, 45 minutes, but that 40, 45 minutes is uninterrupted, means that 40 or 45 minutes, I highly focus on my work, so nothing else. I highly focus on my work, I get some stuff done, then for 5, 10, 15 minutes, I get up, go do something, maybe get a coffee, maybe listen to something, maybe talk to my mother, call someone, do something, right, for 15 minutes, and then come back and then again look at some stuff for 40-45 minutes. That works for me, right? For you, I don't know. You need to practice. You need to try, see what works for you. But then if you realize that something works for you, then you need to keep it. You need to keep it as a habit. You need to build it as a habit so you can be productive. Okay. Research based, Dr. Heather already explained, so I'm not going to stick to this. Let's go into publications. Okay, so for the last 3-4 years, I talk about this topic in different places, different countries, different type of people. I've talked to people who are in business management. I've talked to people who are in statistics. I've talked to people who are in education. I've talked to people who are in linguistics, all types of disciplines, right? So when I ask this question, what is your fear regarding publication or publishing? There's a lot of answers that come, but there's also some constant answers that you get regardless of the field. Even now, I would say if you are watching to the audience, I would really recommend if you can post in the comments and tell us about what is your fear of publication. So you can use the chat box to comment below. I'll have a look at it. But I'll tell you some things that people always say. Number one reason that I always listen from people is that I am afraid of getting rejected. Okay, I'm afraid that I will write a paper, I'll spend a lot of time, and then I'll get rejected. And then what will happen? The problem is this. Rejection is not only in publication, okay? Rejection is throughout our lives. Throughout our lives, we are doing a lot of stuff and rejection happens, okay? For a lot of reasons, okay? You even look at yourself when we are kids, right? Small kids. Sometimes your mother cooks something, maybe chicken or something in home. And if you are many brothers and sisters in a home, like 4 brothers and sisters, 5 siblings, even then you have rejection, right? Maybe you like one piece of meat, your mother gave it to your brother or sister. It's a rejection. You deal with it, right? You don't sit there. Maybe for some time you cry or shout or be angry or whatever, but you deal with it. It goes on, right? It just goes on. Then in your classes, you go to school, you draw something, your teacher says it's wrong. What did you draw, right? And I was very bad at drawing in the start, so I mean, I always listen to this. Maybe your handwriting is bad. Then your teachers say, your parents tell you, what did you write it with your feet? We all listen to these, right? These are all rejections. These are all rejections, right? In fact, sometimes you may want to go somewhere with your cousins or friends. You propose, let's go to Natia Gali. They say, no, let's go to Dir. That's a rejection, right? You don't end your life with that. That's rejection. You deal with it. Publication rejection is similar thing, right? So you write a paper, it goes to a few people. Those people think your paper is not good enough. You deal with it, okay? Now, how do you deal with it? There's a lot of different ways of doing it. One is, remember, it's your work, so it's natural that you are going to defend your work. Right? When you write a paper, you spend 1 year, 6 months, 8 months, whatever time on your paper. You are invested in that paper emotionally, financially, physically. You have investment in that paper. So you cannot let that paper be rejected directly. Of course, you feel angry, you feel sad about it, right? But I think those rejections can make your papers really good. Okay, if you really understand what those people are saying. If you keep sending it to other journals without really improving your paper, that is the time when the rejection can really demotivate you, right? Some of my papers, and in fact, some of my papers, I'm so happy that they got rejected in the first place, because not only the paper improved considerably, but then the paper got published in a much better journal than initially where I submitted it to get a rejection, right? So that is one thing that I always hear, rejection. Just want to say it's a common thing throughout our life. We feel it, we face it, and this is not a major thing, right? So you shouldn't be afraid of it. The second thing about this fear of rejection is this. I have a cousin, and may God bless him, Arif. He is in Dubai currently. He always wanted to go abroad to UK, okay, but he was not applying for visa. One day I asked him, Arif, why you are not applying for visa? He said, well, you know how the image is, and I'm really afraid that they may reject my visa application. So I said, so what? If they reject, then you don't go, but you should apply. How about if they don't reject your visa? Then you go what you dream of, right? I mean, just because you are afraid of getting a rejection, you don't even apply. That means you are self-rejecting, you know. So to all the young researchers, I would say rejection of your paper is the job of the editor. Let the editor do it. You as an author shouldn't feel too worried about it in the start. You should at least submit your paper and then see what's going on. Just because you are afraid of getting rejected and you don't try for it, I don't think it's a good idea, right? So that's one thing. The other thing that I always hear, and also Dr. Heather told me, was skills. So some people feel that publication is very difficult because it requires a lot of skills, and I feel I don't have enough skills. This is another thing that many people feel about it. That's a very valid reason, because publication is not a simple thing, right? So you guys, for those of you who have family members, and everybody loves their family, many of us, our families do not really understand the higher education today, right? So even your family is educated, but they don't understand the landscape or the scape of the higher education today. My father is an educated person. He has worked in a bank for 30 years, well educated, knows a lot of stuff, but he doesn't understand the nature of my job. So for many people, if I'm a professor, my job is to teach. Right? That's what many people feel like. Ala ka to professor yaar ta sa masala. That type of stuff. But for many people, when I tell them that I have to write a research paper, for them it's like, okay, you open Microsoft Word and you start typing. That's it. Right? I mean, that's what else is gonna take, right? Many people tell me like, how difficult is your job? You just sit in front of a computer and type, right? But we as researchers understand how many different things need to go into one paper that you write, right? Even for that writing, you need to know how to write an argument, how to use referencing, how to find research papers, how to read them, how to synthesize them, how to summarize them, right? How to collect data, your methodologies, your formatting. There's so many different type of things that go into that. So this is for real that it requires a lot of skills. Now, can anybody? I mean, I for sure, after all my experience, cannot claim that I'm 100% skilled person. I am not. I cannot claim that, and I think nobody in this world can claim that they know 100% of the stuff. It's just not possible, right? So, if you are a new researcher, should you develop your skills first, or should you read first, right? Or should you write first? What do you need to do? I want to ask all of you a very simple question. Those of you who are in Pakistan or India, developing countries, um, if you have a car and your car breaks down and you go to a workshop, mechanic, right? Mechanic workshop. Have you seen small kids in mechanic workshop working? Maybe 10-year-old, 11-year-old, they are working there. Do you think they have any degree in engineering or any degree in engine fixing or anything? No, they learn by doing, on the job training, right? That is exactly what you need to do with publishing. You cannot build skills without doing it. You got to do it, and then it develops your skill. That's why I told you my story of how did I start. Really basic journal scopus and then SSCI. So you learn it like that. Skills, if you have never written a paper, okay, if you have never faced a rejection from a journal, if you have never dealt with reviewers, how do you know what skills do you need? I just gave you an example of PLS. I've written a book on PLS. I've written several papers on PLS, methodology papers. I've done multiple workshops on PLS. But one of my papers got a comment about endogeneity in PLS, which I didn't know. So based on that comment, because I'm working there, then I developed that skill, how to test endogeneity, right? So you got to work in order to know what skills do you need. Now, to write, you need some basic skills. Some basic skills are necessary before you start. And that's why if you are starting your PhD or MPhil, very important that you should take the research methods course in the first semester. The moment you start your PhD or MS or MPhil, take the research methods course in the first semester. That is very, very important. Okay. Now, in some places, I understand that it's not in your hand, like the university is not offering research methods course, right? So if that's the case, there is unlimited free resources available on internet, like unlimited free resources. What Dr. Heather is doing right now, his YouTube channel is full of these resources. My YouTube channel is full of these resources. If you don't want to do this, go to edx, go to Coursera, go to LinkedIn Learning, right? They all have free courses on research methodology. That course in the start is going to develop your basic skills. You will understand what is going on, and then you can start writing. But most of your skills are going to be developed on the job, means you have to work, and then your skills will keep building. Okay. So that is another fear that I've always heard. But let's move along and see what else do we have. Okay. Dr. Heather, we have 20 more minutes, right? Okay, and
Please carry
Christine is,
on, because
yeah,
I'm enjoying what you are saying. It's a lovely stuff to hear. It's a wonderful. Please carry
yeah.
on.
So Christine is saying that my fear is that research is not significant enough, right? So,
Yes.
okay, I look at it very differently. Many of my senior professors, and I love them a lot, right? I mean, of course, we can disagree to each other, but this disagreement is with a lot of respect, okay, and um, not personal disagreement, but just the way we think about things. So many times I have seen that people question the worth of research, saying that, okay, you are doing this research, but what's the worth of it? How is it changing the society? Right? This is what many people say. And because of these questions, and some younger researchers also, the question the significance of their research. Yes, it's somewhat an important thing to think about, but remember one thing, okay? When you write, if you, again, to make it very simple, just imagine this, okay? I have this one glass that I am having my coffee in, right? This glass has capacity, right? It has a certain amount of capacity. um, if I make my coffee in this glass, the way the capacity is and the way this glass is built, it's only enough for one or maybe two people if I want to share it with one other person. I cannot share this glass with 10, 15, 20 people. I can't, because the glass is not meant to be like that. But if I have a whole jug of coffee, then I can share it with 8 people, 10 people, because the capacity is more. It's designed like that, right? So anything in the world is like this. I cannot go and wear the shirt of my 7-year-old son because that's not meant for me. And he can't wear my shirt because my shirt is not meant for him, right? Anything, right? You think about anything around yourself, it's like this. You go for an interview, you don't wear a broken t-shirt and underwear to go for interview, because it's not how it's meant to be. You properly dress professional. But let's say you are alone in your home, there's nobody, and you're feeling hot or whatever, you may not even wear a shirt in your home and you're walking here and there, right? Because that's how it's meant to be. So everything in our life, we need to see what is it meant to be. Now imagine one thing. I am one researcher. I have limited resources. I wrote a paper. Okay. How can I expect one paper to be beneficial for theory? Okay. One paper to be beneficial for theory, the same paper to be beneficial for industry, the same paper to be beneficial for society. How is it possible? Like, I cannot understand this. It's just not possible. Then you also have this question that, okay, I wrote this paper, I wrote this paper in a journal. Why industry is not reading it? Because industry is not the specific audience for that journal. I mean, anybody, can you tell me anyone in the industry, a manager or somebody, would they understand what is SEM? What are we talking about in SEM? Covariance based SEM, variance based SEM, discriminant validity, convergent validity. No, they don't understand. So why are we writing a paper in a journal expecting an industry person to read it? It's not meant to be for them. And then You as a researcher write a paper, okay? You write a paper like a newspaper article. Let's say you write a paper like a newspaper article or a magazine and send it to a journal. They will just reject it. They will say, what is this? There's no theoretical backing. There's no, why? Because the audience is different. So one paper can, in my opinion, again, maybe people disagree to it, and that's completely fine because we look at things differently. In my opinion, one paper just cannot make a contribution on theoretical, practical, and managerial and societal levels. It's just not possible because the audience is different. They read differently. The paper has to be shaped differently for them. Now, yes, what can happen is that your paper can focus on theoretical contributions, right? You can really create theoretical contributions. And then based on those theoretical contributions, you can say, how can these findings be applied in industry, right? Maybe what can industry learn from it, right? This is what we can do. But for industry to implement those things, you have to write another piece. You have to write another paper. And that paper needs to be focusing on industry. That is very important. Otherwise, it's not going to work. Okay, I'll give you an example very quickly in a moment. So I, with Dr. Jihan and myself, we did a study about religious tourism. Okay, so here I will show you this in a moment. Yeah, let me share my screen. Okay, Dr. Heather, can you please? Yes. So if you look at my screen right now, you will see that this article is written by Dr. Jihan and myself. Here you can see our names, right? And this one talks about religious tourism during the pandemic. Okay. Now this paper is generally written. There's a lot of statistics and everything, but it doesn't talk about SEM, it doesn't talk about methodology, it doesn't talk about any of those things. But what's interesting is that this paper has been read by many people from the industry because this is the language they understand. Now, if I put my PDF of the paper, the journal article in here, nobody is going to read it in industry. They don't understand what are we talking about, right? It's just not possible. So sometimes what happens is this. You, for instance, here we say that this is what I said, right? So I mean, we put a link to it, and this is another article that Dr. Jehan and I wrote, right, for COVID-19 in April 21. Again, same thing. Now here, look. However, we expect that this image may recover soon as research shows that travelers have short memory about negative aspects of destination, right? So this is one sentence. This is a summary of this paper, which is an academic paper here, right? Now, industry is not interested to write this overall paper, but from this paper, from one of the findings of this paper, industry is interested in these two lines. So if you are a person, to make your research significant, you still have to focus on the main audience of your research. The main audience of your research is people in academia. That's where you are contributing, basically. Now, if you want to contribute for industry, you can certainly do it. Many of us have consulting projects, government projects, funded projects where the focus is on industry or society or whatever. Certainly, you can do it. But you have to decide in the start who is the audience so that your paper can be significant for them. My paper cannot be significant for all the people at the same time. It's just not possible to do it that way, right? Okay. So that's Christine, to your question. Yeah, so then two people, Asim and Athav Joshi, are saying about plagiarism. So the easiest way to deal with plagiarism is don't copy. That's the easiest way you can deal with plagiarism. So what I do is this, okay? Sometimes when we are writing papers, right? When we are writing papers or writing answers to reviewer comments or whatever, you cannot remember from where did you read something, whatever. So what I do is normally if I really copy a whole chunk, right, 4 or 5 lines or whatever into my paper, I highlight it. I highlight the whole thing and then keep writing with the flow because you don't want to break your flow. So at the end, once I'm done, then I can see which chunks were exactly taken from where because those are highlighted. And I rephrase them or change the flow of the sentence a little bit. But there's no shortcut to plagiarism other than you write everything by yourself. Now, sometimes I see that people are very happy saying that in my paper, the plagiarism is 0% or 1%. That's also not good because that means you didn't read anything. That means you didn't read anything. So there's a reason why at Turnitin or around the world there's a cutoff value of 15% or 20% for Turnitin because you are expected to add definitions or quotations or things like this into your paper to make it more solid, right? So yeah, to plagiarism, I would say the only thing is to highlight the things and then make sure that you rephrase them or whatever. Uh, okay, Amina is saying my supervisor says know the rules and win the game, but in research you do not have clear written rules and what to do. I actually don't believe in this. I feel that there are written rules in research. There are rules in different disciplines. There are different places. Plus, also journals have rules, so you need to know the journals in your field to see what type of papers they are publishing and whatnot. Amina, if you tell me. What is your research area, I can actually highlight this a bit more. But I feel there are certainly rules that you can learn from your seniors, from your supervisor, or other peers in the same field. This is also another issue that I've seen with many people that they are very scared of working with other people, okay, during their PhD, which I think is not a good idea. I feel that if you think that you're good at something, and it can be anything, you can be good at methodology, you can be good at literature, whatever, your skills are not completely developed, but you might be good at something. I think it's a good idea to work with a couple of teams during your PhD with people who are not in your university or your department, but maybe similar department in another university or another country. Those collaborations can also teach you a lot of stuff, and also it's synergetic because if you are good at something, other people are good at other things, you can quickly work together to publish something. These days, in the last 1 year or so, my role it has become more of a mentor. So I'm working with several people, mentoring them to write papers. And every time when I'm doing this, I ask young researchers one thing, and that is, what are you good at? What are you good at? So if they tell me I'm good at this, I say, okay, you are going to do this. If somebody says I'm good at, let's say, writing literature review, I say, okay, you do literature review. Now, it doesn't mean that once they finish the literature, I don't look at it. It's not like that. There's always constant revisions and everything. But if somebody tells me I'm good at this, that's what they are going to do because they say they are good at it, right? So they can contribute in that situation. Okay, let's quickly proceed a little bit further. Yeah, so I already talked about this, my experience with research very quickly, so I'm going to skip this one. But I will come here to why do we do research, okay? So right now, there's quite a few people who are watching this talk, and many of you attend other talks like this as well, right? So if I ask you, why do you attend this talk or why do you listen to this talk, is because you want to do research, right? Because this is a research-related channel, it's a research-related talk. Why do we do research? There's a lot of reasons for it, right? And again, if I summarize it, some people do it because it's a need for their degree. Until you don't publish, you don't get your degree. So you have to do some research because it's a component of your academic degree or diploma. Some people do research because maybe their teachers ask them to write a paper, or their parents who are professors, or their friends are doing it, this type of stuff. Some people do it because of peer pressure. Now, many times I share my stuff on Facebook and other people ask me like, you put us into trouble because looking at you, we also want to publish a lot of stuff. I don't know why that happens, but this happens, right? Peer pressure. There was an Indian movie called Three Idiots. There was a very interesting, there was a very interesting dialogue, and there's these three friends. They look at the marks and their marks in the exam, and then one guy says that, when you look at your own marks, and you are fail, it doesn't give you that much sorrow compared to the happiness that you get when your friends fail. So so that type of stuff happens, right? Peer pressure, sense of honor, we want to publish and all that stuff. For some people, I think I am also one of those people. I consider it as a small success. You publish, it feels like a small success. You feel happier. That's why you keep doing research. And some people do it out of their interest, sense of curiosity. They want to get answers. They want to get it, make it as an achievement or whatever. And yes, so this last one is very important. I am a strong believer in this one, self-expectation. Okay, I'll tell you why I'm saying this. So the the reason why I do not compete with other people, okay, I have a lot of my colleagues, a lot of my friends. I do not compare myself with them. I never do this, and there's a reason for it. I'll tell you very simple. One is we are all different. Okay, we are all very different. Now, this difference in primary school and secondary school and middle school and high school, it's very different because when you go to class 1 and class 2 in your primary school, all the kids are same age, right? They're all same age. Maybe their economic background, their family background is different, but they're all same age. They are at the same developmental stage in their life and everything. But when you are a PhD student, it's a completely different situation. So you have some PhD students who are maybe 24, 25-year old. You have some PhD students who are 30, 35 years old. And then you also have some PhD students who are 50 years old and more, right? So there's a huge gap in the type of people you have during your PhD or right after your PhD. Second thing is, for most of the people, when they get into PhD, either they are married, right? So they have a family to take care of. Some of them have kids. If not that, then they have parents who are getting old and maybe they are sick. You have to take care of your parents as well, right? This is another situation with men because the age is like that, right? When you are studying for your PhD. If you are not having any of those things, then you have a constant fear because people who are with you in the college, they have already got job and they are earning while you are still studying. So whenever you go and meet your friends, you have this common comment from people saying that how much more will you study, right? That type of stuff. So PhD is a very different ball game. People are very different, and there's a lot of different responsibilities that people have during PhD, right? And one person's responsibility is very different from another person. So comparing cannot work because we are not same. We are not in the same, shoes. Comparing cannot work. Then some people's English is good, some English is not good. We write in English, right? Some people are good at statistics, some are not, and they have to learn. So that comparison cannot work here. The best comparison is to compare your performance with your own self. That's the best comparison you can do. So if this year you have done some stuff, is your next year going to be better than this year? That's the best comparison you can do. That can keep you in check, that can keep you motivated, that can keep you positive, and that can keep away the negative thoughts of your brain. Because the moment you compare yourself with other people, you think bad, either about yourself, either about them, right? So I mean, if I'm comparing myself with Dr. Heather, well, either I'm going to blame myself, right? Oh, why am I like this? Why I'm not doing? Or either I'm going to blame Dr. Heather, like this guy is so lucky, he blah blah blah, whatever, right? So negativity comes. But if you compare yourself with your own self, it pushes you, it motivates you, right? So that's the best thing you can do. Keep yourself comparing to your own self. Self expectation, self regulation, self check. That is very important. Okay. All right. Of course, there are external and internal motivations. I feel the more internal motivation you have, the stronger you can become at research. So make sure that, and internal motivations are normally long term. It keeps long term, right? So it keeps you going for the long term. Okay, publish or perish, right? So I mean, we all heard of this phrase, publish or perish, many times, and there's a reality to it. There's definitely a reality to it because Publishing has become so important into our domain, into our job domain, that if you don't publish, it's not good for you career wise, right? Especially if you are in higher education, it becomes just so important. But remember that publish or perish did not stop there. It even go beyond, and now it is published in high impact factor journals or perish. So if you don't publish in high impact factor journals, then you will perish. So high impact factor is important. But now recently, because there's so many people coming into PhD and higher education and publishing, that you have to publish frequently in high impact factor journals, and maybe you won't perish, because you still have people who are publishing in high impact factor journals not happy. Maybe the leaders are not happy, they are not happy with their job or whatever, but it is becoming more and more and more difficult. So in this situation, there are certain things you can do. One, remember that you really got to build a good team to work with. This research has shown that teams can help a lot. Teams can help a lot. Sorry, Dr. Heather, I got disconnected for a few seconds, so
Yeah,
I'm back.
no problem. Please carry on. Yes.
Yeah. So I think teams can help a lot. Okay, teams really can help a lot, because teams can keep you in check when you're working with teams. One, if you get published, right? If you get published, a paper got published in a good impact factor journal or a good impact journal, high impact journal, that happiness multiplies, because if your team have 4 or 5 people, you all celebrate, right? So it multiplies, and it's a happier thing to motivate you. If for some reason your paper gets rejected, then the sorrow, right, the disappointment divides amongst 4 or 5 people, so it doesn't look very bad. It's like this, and it's highly possible that in your team you have 1 or 2 people or 3 people who are highly positive or optimistic or whatever, so they can sort of make sure that the whole team is good. So that's one thing. The other one is it can save you time, because everybody is good at certain things, you can get things faster. Plus multiple perspectives get into your paper, so the more you can work with teams and collaborations, the better it is. And it can normally result in good publications when you're working with a team. But that team should be completely based on merit, right? So it's like, if there's a team, everybody should have a set role, that okay, I'm going to do this part, I'm going to do this part, I'm going to do this part. You cannot and should not write names of people who don't do anything on the paper. Why? Because many times it happens that, okay, somebody can ask you, okay, you put my name on your paper, I'll put your name on my paper. Not a good idea. It's really not a good idea. I'll tell you this. Very recently, we had a case of a situation where one person was rejected from a job interview because the person has a strong CV with several publications. Okay, and during the interview, one of the persons who interviewers randomly picked up one of the publications and asked him about the methodology in this paper. And that guy said, well, I don't know, because I didn't do methodology in this paper. That is the worst thing you can do to yourself. And unfortunately, this is what is happening around us, right? For many, many cases. So uh, remember that whenever you're working in teams, make sure that the teams are completely based on merit, not outside of merit. It is not good for you in the long term. So in on my CV, I mean, if not the time, right? If you ask me something from 6 years ago, 7 years ago, maybe I don't recall it completely. But honestly, you pick up any paper on my CV, even if I'm the fourth author or fifth author as a mentor, I will tell you exactly what was going on with that paper, because maybe there might be some people, Dr. Heather, who are here listening, and who have approached me to put my name on their paper. I say two things. One, if it's not my area, don't put my name on your paper. I don't need it. Okay. Second, If you want to put my name on the paper, I have to contribute. And by contribute, I mean I have to read it, I have to review it, I need to make sure that everything is correct. And if I give you comments, you've got to deal with them. You cannot just ignore and submit the paper. That's what I do, right? Because my name is there. And there's a funny thing I always say to my students and everybody else here. It's a funny thing, okay? So don't take it very seriously. Your research publications, your research papers are even more important than your husbands or wives. Why? I'll tell you why. Because if you're not happy with your marriage, many people divorce, right? It's not a good thing, but it happens. Research paper, you can't remove it. Your name is on it, not throughout your life, but even after you are not in this world, your name still stays on it, right? Many of us still read Maslow, right? Maslow's hierarchy of need. The guy is dead, I don't know, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. We still read it, right? So remember that once a paper is published with your name, you just cannot remove it. It's just part of the record. It's there. You can't remove it. You cannot do anything with it. So make sure if there's anything that is with your name, that should be accurate. You should know about it, and it should be properly done. So, Dr. Heather, there's a lot we can talk, but it's only 5 past 10, right? So I see that there's several questions coming. So how about if we answer the questions, right? Because those questions are also important. Probably we can answer some stuff in that question.
Sure, please, please. Let me just read it for you, or you will take it by your own, please.
No, we can take it, no problem. So there's one question from Asim Aziz. Says that sometimes reviewer ask why you use any variable as a unidimensional instead of using it as multidimensional. How to answer it? It's a very good question. Okay, it's a very good question. Uh, Remember one thing. Now, if a reviewer is asking you why did you take something unidimensional and not multidimensional, that means that you probably did not explain it in your paper. Okay, you probably didn't explain it, and that's why the reviewer is asking you. So, for many variables in our research, especially in social sciences, it's a common thing, right? There's a lot of different ways of measuring something. Sometimes it's unidimensional, sometimes multidimensional. It doesn't matter which operationalization you pick up, whether you are picking up unidimensional or multidimensional, it doesn't matter. What matters is you should make it part of your literature review. So when you are writing a literature review for that variable, you must mention this in there that some people have used it unidimensionally, some people have done it multidimensionally. You must do that because that shows that you know about it. Okay. Now, if I get a question like this, and if I didn't explain it, or maybe if I'm reviewing your paper and you didn't explain this, the reason why I would put a comment like this is because I as a reviewer may feel that you don't know the literature. You don't know the literature, so that's why you take one over another one. If you explain it in literature, right, then the reviewer can ask you that why you didn't take it multidimensional and why did you take it unidimensional, but then that question is purely based on your methodology, not based on your understanding of the concept, right? So first of all, I think you should add this into your literature, very important. And second is, yes, you as reviewer should know why you are taking the unidimensional and not multidimensional. I'll give you an example in my case. So we know satisfaction, right? Satisfaction, customer satisfaction, it's a very common construct. We all use it in our research. Customer satisfaction is taken multiple, it's measured in different ways, okay? So some people have measured satisfaction as an emotional construct, means the questions are more emotional in nature, right? And the question is like, I am happy when I consume this. I enjoy my consumption. It makes me feel good to consume this. Those questions are for satisfaction, but emotional, right? Then some people measure satisfaction as a perceptual concept, means based on perceptions, right? Perception is a very different thing, perception and emotion. Now, in some cases, what can happen is this. Let me see if I can. Okay, let me show you something very quickly. Let me make it big. Okay, so let's say if this is one variable, it says physical environment. Okay. I'm just showing you something, okay? Okay, so let's say if this is one model I just created, right? I mean, I'm just trying to explain this as a logical thing. Okay, just assume that this is a model, okay? I make it, and for satisfaction, I used questions that are based on perceptions, okay? And then one reviewer asked me that why did you use perception questions for satisfaction? Because some people also measure it with emotional questions. Why you don't use emotional questions? So my answer to this would be, well, if I use emotional questions, I also have emotions as another variable. So how can emotions impact emotions? Emotions can't impact emotions, right? So that's why, but emotions can impact perceptions, right? So that's why I do it. So this is normally the sort of justification you need to have based on how you choose to operationalize a variable. Now, in some cases, let's say another very interesting concept is service quality. Okay, so service quality is a multidimensional as well as a unidimensional construct, right? So multidimensional, it has 5 dimensions in most of the cases. Serve qual, many people use, right? In some cases, it's a unidimensional and whatever. Now, another justification for this would be, let's say if you are conducting a research on a highly specific sample where you cannot collect more than 50 or 60 respondents, right? So let's say you can only collect data from 50 people or 60 or maybe 100 people. And if you want to collect data for service quality and you go with multi-dimensional construct, which means that only the service quality will have 24 questions. Only the service quality will have 24 questions. And then you have other variables. So then you cannot analyze your data if you have that many questions in your questionnaire. So for that sample, I can go with unidimensional because unidimensional has only 4 or 5 questions. So I mean, these type of justification, this is again, I don't know what was your case, which variable did you use, but I'm just trying to find some examples just to tell you how you can justify it. So justification would be based on your study design, the context, the content, what is your overall model look like and all that type of stuff. Okay, and then what else is it? Okay, how do you keep yourself motivated in this journey? This I already answered. So motivation is something that works for people differently. Okay, it is a very different way of looking at things. We have all these theories and organizational behavior and human resource management about motivation, all types of motivation. So you get to think about it, what motivates you. For me, the biggest motivation is always to think about why did I choose to go for PhD, right? So the moment you think about why did you choose to go for PhD, that motivates me enough to keep going, because my motivation was to, first of all, to contribute to my own country's image, which I'm doing. I hope it's working well. The other one was there was nobody with a PhD in people that I knew around myself, so I wanted to do it for that. And then the third biggest thing was because I love teaching. I started teaching when, I don't know, I was 10 or 11 years old. I was doing tuitions for younger kids in my school. I love it. My family, 90% of the people in my family are teachers. Okay, so I mean, teaching was something that I was, observing since I was born. So that's what I loved, and that was needed for it. So those were the reasons why I got into PhD, and they're still relevant. Right? If I want to keep my job, if I want to get promoted, I need to keep going with research. So my biggest thing is to think about why did I get into PhD. I think that works for many people. Okay. Um, I think the other question is about research groups that I already answered in detail, like why should you do collaborations and how should you do collaborations. So I'll take this one. Adnan is saying that even today, one of his friends asked him, "Alak kato sa pore sabak hue?" So yes, this is a common thing. It happens in our society. Amina is saying, does your profile matters when you submit your papers to a journal? No, it does not. Okay, it really doesn't. Especially if you're targeting a good level journal. So I'll tell you this, for IJHM, International Journal of Hospitality Management, it's number one in hospitality. They receive 1800 to 1900 submissions a year. Okay, new submissions. IJCHM is getting around the same amount of submissions every year. Do you think any editor have got this much time? Editors, remember, editors are professors. They have their own jobs, they have their own family and everything, and then also the editorship. Do you think an editor will have that much time to go and copy your name, put it in Google, and try to search your profile before they submit your pen? No, it doesn't. Reviewers normally don't get your name, so they don't even know where are you from or whatever, right? So I don't. These are all myths. There's no reality to it. Now, sometimes people say that, well, if I'm from Pakistan or if I'm from India or if I'm from here or there, then my papers are not considered well and they are rejected. That's not true. Yeah, I'm not saying it 100% not true. I mean, yes, there might be some cases where the editors have bias or whatever, and that's the reality because editors are human beings also. They are not robots, right? And we as human beings all have biases, right? Towards one versus another one, we have biases. So those type of things can happen. But does that happen with every journal? I don't think so. It doesn't happen with every journal, right? So most of the journals don't have that type of an issue because again, most of the editors are well-established scholars, they're well-educated, understand the field very well. So for most of the times, it doesn't happen like that. I mean, this is just simply a myth. Do you think writing papers related to COVID-19 will receive many citations? What about doing master's, PhD by linking our area with COVID-19? Very, very, very good question. I feel that COVID-19 itself is not important anymore. Okay, the whole world is beyond COVID. People are talking about what's next beyond COVID. So that's one thing you need to think about. The other thing is it this the last pandemic in the world? I don't think so. You know, pandemics are going to be the reality. In fact, some experts are saying that they are going to happen more frequently in the future. So we will have to see this again and again. My suggestion is don't link your work with COVID-19. Link your work with pandemics. Link your work with something more generalizable that is applied to many more cases, right? So because COVID-19 probably is going to finish. I mean, you look at Pakistan and things are getting back normal. Other places, yes, there are some lockdowns, this and that, but people are getting back to normal. So COVID-19 itself is not going to help too much. But if you really try to understand some phenomena related to COVID-19, that phenomena you can generalize and then work on it. I think that would be more important. I did several papers related to COVID-19. All those papers are very different from one another. One paper I did was about branding because several brands changed their logos during COVID-19 to promote social distancing. So that I didn't look at COVID-19. I mean, yes, I wrote about COVID-19 in that paper, but COVID-19 is not in my title. It's not in abstract nowhere. Rather than COVID-19, I looked at branding and social distancing. So social distancing is a phenomena related to COVID-19, but it's not COVID-19, it's a phenomena, it's a social phenomena. So that social distancing is good. The other research paper that we did was how do people look at unconventional restaurants after COVID-19, like restaurants that serve insects or live seafoods or stuff like this, which is again another paper getting a lot of traction now. So it's not directly COVID-19, but something stemming from COVID-19. So I think that's how you need to look at it. I would like to take this moment and give a huge shout out to Sir Heather. Yes, I also believe Akil Sir Heather is doing a good job. Christine is saying, how do you deal with people that do not understand what people in higher degree do? How do you not let the pressure get to you? Well, look, there is something you need to know, and that is you cannot make 100% people love you. You also cannot make 100% people hate you. It's just not possible. We can't do that. Okay. So focus on the positives around you, ignore the negatives. I think that's the only way you can deal with things. Of course, there's a lot of negativity around us. There's a lot of things that pressurize us. But as an adult, if you that's why I was saying earlier that your inner motivation is very important. Your inner motivation. So thinking about why did you start your PhD is very important because that keeps you on track. Okay. What other people say a lot of things, and I think for once I would say that you need to be a little bit stubborn. And normally this is something I say to my kids who are 5 and 7 year old, but I'll say to all of you that has God given you 2 ears and one mouth? Is because you can listen a lot but don't speak a lot about it. So I mean, people can say whatever they say, you listen from here, take it out from the other ear, and you don't need to explain everything to everybody. People who know what you are doing, they're going to appreciate what you are doing. People who don't understand it, that's good enough. I will tell you that around me, many people tell me, why are you doing all this? Like, why are you doing all this? Like this talk that I'm doing right now, 1.5 hour, whatever, why are you doing it? What's the benefit? What are you getting out of it? No, I listen to it, I say, well, it's okay, nothing, finish. Internally, I'm happy because at least 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 people benefit from it and they get their things sorted out. That's good for me, right? So don't you don't have to explain things to people that don't understand it. That's, I think, is what I do. uh, Amina, your last question is, I've attended a lot of workshops. What is your opinion whether one should present her work at a conference or not? It's absolutely important. Yeah, I think that, if you want to do a favor to yourself, present at conferences, but present at proper conferences. Don't go to International Journal of Sustainability, Business, Economics, and Commerce, and whatever. Don't go to those journals. Find one or two journals, mainstream journals in your field, mainstream conferences in your field. Attend those conferences, present there so you can get proper benefit, proper feedback. Okay. I attend 3 conferences every year. Those are in hospitality. One of them is the biggest hospitality conference called CRE, which just finished in July. The other one happens in January, that is purely for graduate students. It's called Graduate Conference on Hospitality and Tourism. Only graduate students present there. Professors cannot present, only graduate students present. I attend this because I feel there is where we can really contribute to younger students and their development, right? So there's a lot of feedback there. And then the third one is a conference related to hospitality technology, which is my area, right? So for no matter what happens, I have to attend these 3 conferences every year. Maybe there are more I attend, but these 3 are must conferences I attend. So I think you need to find 2 or 3 conferences in your field that are the biggest or most significant conferences and present there. Why? One, all the people in that conference are in your area, so the feedback you get would be much more focused and much more relevant to you. Second, it can help you build networks and collaborations. Honestly, if today I am in the US working here, that is because of a conference. I presented at a conference. Right after my presentation, one professor told me that your research is very interesting. It's relevant to what I do. Why don't you come and do your postdoc with me? That's what happened. So conferences can give you a lot of these type of opportunities, and I think that's the best thing you can do to yourself. So, Dr. Heather, I think we don't have more questions. Questions finished. We didn't
Thank
talk
you
too
very
much
much.
about.
Such a wonderful replies, Dr. Faizan. And we have received a lot of questions through the website and through the social media. One question I would ask, because since it's overtime and we have
Yes.
taken a lot of your precious time, one question which a lot of students have asked is that, in your opinion, what are the basic mistakes students do in writing a research paper? Can you please highlight the basic mistakes, please?
Okay, Dr. Heather, I have a better proposal for you. Okay, because
Very
the mistakes are many. Okay, because
nice.
there's so many mistakes people make, especially when it comes to methodology. So here is what I can propose to you.
Okay.
Let's do another session in maybe a couple of weeks where we can only focus on the mistakes. I can only highlight the mistakes that I have seen people doing as a supervisor, as a
Yeah.
collaborator, but as a reviewer and editor. The mistakes that
One.
I've seen people make in their papers, entirely focusing on mistakes. I think maybe 1 hour, 1.5 hour. Not only will
Yes.
I talk about mistakes, but I'll also talk about how do you avoid those mistakes. What can you do not to make those mistakes? So we
That
can
would be
focus
very.
that entire session on that one. Okay.
Yeah, very nicely said. Very nicely said. Dr. Faizanani, what I would conclude in that is it was a wonderful session with you. You are full of energy, full of knowledge, full of the information. And I love the way you started your presentation right after removing the misconception regarding the PhD. Most of the time we hear this word that you are PhD from Thailand or from China or from Malaysia, and you have very clearly elaborated everything that it's about your PhD work, your topic, and how do you do and how you carry out your research. It's not about the country, it's not about that thing. So very well done. And this was the question which was asked a lot, but you have already covered in your presentation. And then I love the way you have shown the people to have the work-life balance, which we were talking before the session, that how do you do the different things in order to enjoy your life along with the research activities. And I love the way the analogies you have given regarding the rejection, that every day in life we face this kind of rejection in terms of taking a meal or going for a trip. It was a wonderful analogy and I loved it. And of course, we got a lot of questions regarding the role of the comments and the reviewers, which you have covered everything. So most of the 70 to 80% questions you have covered in your presentation, even though you did not know it, that what questions we received. But still, it is the beauty of the expert. When you talk to expert, they will cover each and everything, and they will connect the different dots in order to make it very easy. So once again, I would really appreciate for further sessions, and you are kind enough, you are humble enough that you have already said before our request that you will be available for another session. And again, what you have already said, that on based on one reviewer comment, you arranged one session for the people to learn from it. So again, based on one comment, now you are arranging another session. That is the real contribution. That is the impact you are creating on world and your contribution towards the world for betterment. That's a wonderful, Faizan, Dr. Faizan. I loved your energy and I loved your positivity, because you have gone through a very long journey. It's a long shot you have played, and right from taking the PhD journey to the US, and now you are, mashallah, carrying on in a very wonderful way, that you have become role model for us, and we follow you on different things. That's a wonderful thing, Dr. Faizan. I really enjoyed your session. I really enjoyed your this wonderful way of narrating things and connecting the different things. Dr. Faizan, I would request you that what is your message to the world as a researcher, trainer, learner, professional, and educator, please?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Heather, for your kind words. You make me feel important by
Yeah.
all those comments. I don't know how important I am, but thank you for your kind words. So, um, I, I, a couple of things, okay? So one is for people, I don't know how many people who are not relevant to PhD or higher education or research are gonna watch this video. But if, let's say, for some reason, somebody like my dad or my mom or my aunties, or all our aunties, uncles, anybody watch this video, I would say that give your kids a chance who are in research, right? Give them a chance, give them a little bit chance and a little bit time, and hopefully they will get better at things. This is one of those things which come with time, maybe 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, people get better. So that's one thing. For the administrators, for the people who make policies, I think it's very important that researchers should be part of it. Unfortunately, right now, when I look at Pakistan, being from Pakistan, it hurts me to see that for many of the things that are happening on policy making level, research is absent, which is something that really hurts me. I'm from tourism right now. Pakistan is focusing on tourism and improving tourism in many countries, and they're always having, meetings and whatnot. But you know, probably do not see any researcher in those meetings. Most of them are bureaucrats and people sitting, right? So I think that is very important that researchers should be part of the policy making group, right? At least not all researchers, but some researchers should be there so they can provide a whole picture of what has happened in the past and the future and whatnot. For researchers, lastly, all the researchers here who are listening, be interesting. Okay, be interesting in what you are doing. How can you be interesting? Do something unique. Do something new. Okay, don't focus on what other people have done. In Pakistan, there's a trend of getting a base paper, find a paper, then follow that paper, and then don't do that. I mean, if that paper is already published, why would somebody be interested in your paper then? Same thing, right? And many of us then have this justification that yes, that paper was published in US, I'm doing it in Pakistan. It's not done in Pakistan. These days, it doesn't matter. Honestly, Dr. Heather, you are in Pakistan right now. You are using StreamYard for this session, right? Yesterday, I was in US. I used StreamYard for another session I did. There's not so much difference in how people behave, whether it's US or Pakistan. Yes, now the difference is in culture, right? There's a cultural difference, of course. But how many of us, when we do a replication study, we talk about culture in that study? We don't. And that is why those papers get rejected. So what is interesting is, let's say, even if you take a base paper and you follow that paper, make sure that in your conclusion, in your discussion, you talk about that paper was done in US, this is done in Pakistan. What are the differences? How those differences impact your findings? Then your paper become interesting. So if you are a researcher, be interesting, be relevant, be unique. Okay, build your own uniqueness, and don't take chances. Don't be afraid of taking chances. You know, that is what I would say to younger researchers.
Yeah. Very nicely said. What a wonderful message you have given to the world, and particularly for research students who are looking after you and they are following you in your research journey and your research activities. That's a wonderful message for them. Thank you very much, Dr. Faizan Ali. I would say that I completely agree that it is indeed a challenge to publish your work in high impact journals or in top tier journals, but keeping in view that we can take this challenge and we can work hard to prove it that it is not impossible to publish there. As our today's guest, Dr. Faizan Ali, has already proved by publishing in high impact factor journal that nothing is impossible in this world. He has already narrated his story, that how did he start and then how did he make to the level that he himself become the assistant associate editor of that journal which has rejected his paper. So that speaks for his hard work and the journey he has taken. So it means, I would quote that when there is will, there is way. So when you try for that and you work hard for that, inshallah, you will get it. So that's all we have today for this session. Thank you once again, Dr. Faizan Ali, for your precious time, and what a wonderful suggestion and tips you have given. And inshallah, we will have another session with you. Not only one session, we will have multiple sessions with you, because we enjoy a lot and we want to learn from you and we want to listen to you further so that people could take advantage of that. So, with this regard, I would like to thank our audience who joined us. If you have any additional question about the information shared today, please email to us or you can connect directly to the speaker. He is available on social media. He has a wonderful YouTube channel, which is Research Beast. I would request to subscribe his channel because it's a wonderful channel and it contains a wonderful content as well. Thank you all for your support and liking our sessions as well. Stay tuned as many sessions are on the way. Please do not miss any session. So till next session, stay safe and blessed. Bye bye. Thank you. Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.